Hey, welcome to Mazzy's mix number 36. The mix videos I do, the ones that are literally titled Mazzy Mix, are a collection of new releases I've gotten in, used records I get in sometimes, reissues. You get the gist. A lot of parts and pieces of just throwing things together. And I haven't done one of these in a little while. So these are some new reissues, some new LPs, and we have rock and jazz and funk and even a couple of used things at the very end here. And I do want to start out with something. Now, there are some records that I was sent free from a couple of labels. And I want a response of, as I get into this, and first of all, get a pencil and paper, because I don't write down in the memo section in the description the list of the records I'm showing. Otherwise, this would be a blog. It's a video, so it's up to you to write them down. If you want to speed through, if you want to stop and start, put it on pause and carefully write down the records that you like or you're maybe interested in pursuing a little more. So write those down. Do the work. I'm up here doing the friggin' work. Do some work. Take notes. The vinyl rundown, Greg, a friend of mine, a friend, associate, or another video maker, did a video, I think last night, shills, calling out shills that, and the premise was you need to share to your audience if you're getting paid or getting free stuff, okay? I've said this many times. First of all, I was in the record business. I think he worked in retail records at one point during the CD era, which is not really the record business, but it's close. And you get promo records. Reviewers get promo records. Radio stations people, DJs, program directors get free records. Every time I get free records, I will tell you if I get free records. Doesn't mean I like them. There are some things I get free that I don't even share here, maybe because I'm not into it. So I'm not a critic. I'm not here to criticize anything. However, if there's an issue, I have something I'll tell you. No one pays me. I don't get a monthly stipend, although I'm open to monthly stipends. If someone wants to sponsor me, reach out to me, and we will let the audience know that you're paying me a monthly retainer. You know, I'm a shill. Thanks, Greg. But watch that, and I totally get it. But, you know, if someone's showing records, again, the whole concept, every promo record you see in record stores and used record stores, that little promo sticker or the hole punch, somebody got those free and now they're selling them. So that's what happens. So I'm going to start out my initial shilling from some records, 3 records I got from Light in the Attic Records. Now, they're based in Seattle. They do a lot of great reissues and things that, and unreleased, interesting concepts. Great production, and they put together those Morphine albums I showed recently, which I did get free, those 2. And these 3 I got free. Now, 2 of these I already have. So in my situation, if there's something I already have, I will, I have a friend, actually, in this particular case, that I'm passing these forward to. I'm not selling them, I'm passing them forward, but I love these records. This is a situation where Light in the Attic has finally had time to repress these, because she's always in demand, and her records are always in demand. And this is Betty Davis. Betty Davis in the early 70s was an icon who never sold as many records to really reach her potential. She was ahead of her time in terms of this, like, just funky, dirty, sexy, in your face, cool ass stuff. Now, let me go back a little bit in time, not too far back, to this record, Columbia Records, from Miles Davis, Fillets of Kilimanjaro. That's her on the cover. She was Miles Davis's second wife. She's the one that really got Miles into, come on, Miles, take off that suit, get into the late 60s, get into what Jimi Hendrix and Sly Stone, and wear some colors and wear some African, you know, show your heritage, which he did. And of course, we know what happened with Bitches Brew and beyond of that. Very influential in Miles and Miles's work, but that is Betty Davis. We actually just lost her. Well, she passed away in a little over a year ago. And she was involved with these reissues from Light in the Attic. I do want to show this. And I bought this when it came out in Portland to play in the car on my ride back, 3-hour drive from Portland to Seattle. And unfortunately, I never bought the vinyl version, which is now crazy money. So Light in the Attic, if you're watching, if you have an extra copy of this, I'm a shill. I would love a vinyl copy of this. But this is, I believe, is an unreleased record recorded with Miles. Miles was kind of co-production with Teo Maceo, who worked on Miles records around this time. And this is, there's some back talk in the studio of Miles, talking to the musicians and her about this. And this is a really interesting record. I'm not reviewing that right now, but if you see this, grab it. CD too, CDs are fine. But 3 of these records were just reissued. You got Betty Davis, you got, not to be confused with What a Dump, Betty Davis. This is the Archive series. This is number 1, Archive series number 2. They Say I'm Different, and this is the self-titled. Now this one was recorded in San Francisco with a lot of artists, Neil Schon, Greg Enrico, Henry Kennedy, Larry Graham of Graham Central Station, a funk group, the East Bay Funk Group, Pete Sears, who played with the Starship, and Jules Broussard, the horn player, played a little bit with Van Morrison and others. Of course, Merle Saunders played with the Dead and did some great funky organ stuff with Jerry Garcia. These records, Annie Simpson, other Anita Pointer, Kathy McDonald, Insane Asylum, was her kind of white soul, funky, blue-eyed record in the mid-70s. But these records are really amazing, and they come in and out of print. So if you see them, grab them, because they're around for like a year, 6 months, whatever, they disappear. And I don't know what their schedule is or their licensing agreement is. My guess is they'll be able to keep repressing these. Now, this is the one I never had and never heard, and this is from 1976, so right, getting into sort of disco stuff. This ain't a disco record. This is a funky record recorded in Louisiana, and this is so good. We got some blues on here by Clarence Gatemouth Brown on here, but there's some great funky, the bass playing, obviously, the musicianship. I'm a little not a big fan of this sort of deco-like cover, but that was when the disco scene was happening. And look at the outfits that she got into. This to me rocks it more. And not just the sensuality of this, where this seems a little more conservative, but the music on either. These are great, funky, soulful records. I mean, what a wonderful, beautiful, free spirit. Highly recommend Light in the Attic. Betty Davis. Pick up anything. All these are they'll get you off your ass. Next, I'm going to go with 3 jazz albums. Now, these I bought. These are actual purchases by myself. 2 are recent tone poets, and the great Blue Note series tone poet Joe Harley and Kevin Gray putting these together, mastering and cutting these. First is Big John Patton, Let 'Em Roll. This is 1966. He's Hammond B3 organ. I'm a huge fan of jazz organ, obviously. Jimmy Smith is the most known, and Shirley Scott. But this has some great soul jazz to it. I mean, obviously, when you get into the organ sounds, I would think all of it has kind of a soul jazz thing. You got Grant Green on guitar, John Patton, of course, on organ. Great vibes of Bobby Hutcherson and Otis Finch on drums. And not much I really can say more about this, but has their wonderful gatefold pictures by Francis Wolff. A great organist and a great jazz artist that a lot of people don't know about. And I just love this cover. Let 'Em Roll, Big John Patton, tone poet. Now this record I've been waiting for, and when I had my interview last year, I think it was a year ago now, this is the one album that Joe Harley teased that he was working on, and he announced that it was coming out. This is from 1969, and this is Schizophrenia by Wayne Shorter. Wayne Shorter's got to be the best of the 60s and the 70s jazz writer. Of course, there's Charlie Mingus and Duke Ellington, but that's like a generation earlier. and Monk, Louis Armstrong, but he was the guy. I mean, he was, I think, Miles, when he brought stuff to Miles in the second great quintet. I think what I've heard, that usually Miles didn't have to rework the music from everyone else. They had to rework. He early on was one of the great pass-through great musicians in Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers. I love this kind of pop psychedelic cover. It opens up with Tom Thumb. It wouldn't be out of that kind of groovy late 60s party club of young adults, like the Playboy After Dark type of thing. It's just really, it's a groovy opener. There's James Spaulding, Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Joe Chambers. They got 3 of the 5 members of the great quintet right on here. And Herbie's playing is just, it's just beautiful on this. There's some In Your Face. Obviously the last song on side 1 is Schizophrenia, and it's a perfect name for somewhat of a frenetic. I wouldn't call it outside jazz. There's some beautiful slower bits like Miyako by Wayne Shorter. He wrote all but one song. Kryptonite, James Spaulding's song, opens up side 2. But a lovely record. But some of it is intense, but not overly intense. It's a perfect record from 1969. Another great gatefold with Wayne Shorter. We just lost him also this past year. So, I mean, he outlived everyone from the quintet except for Herbie Hancock, who's still alive. But this is one of my favorites right now on the table. I blast this, and it's good. It's a great record, great record. The next new jazz reissue is Roy Haynes Quartet, Out of the Afternoon. This is from the Acoustic Sounds Verve series, again, the all analog, great cover, there, yada, yada, yada. But this is really good music. Now, not to take any away from those two-tone poets, this blew me away, the sound and musically. Obviously, the music first, but the sound of this record is something especially special. Is that a way to put it? This has Tommy Flanagan on piano, Henry Grimes on bass, and Roland Kirk, who would become Ross on Roller Kirk. This is from 1962. And, you talk about efficiency. When you get Ross on Roland Kirk, or you get Roland Kirk in this point, you get basically one man playing 3 reed instruments at once. He literally has 3 in his mouth at once much of the time. And you can hear it, and you can hear, I don't know how anyone does that. I don't know how he does it. It's pure genius. And this is a very accessible jazz album. I would say if you have no jazz albums or anything like this is one to pick up. It's not out there. It's beautiful. Again, it opens up with Moonray, which is kind of a upbeat, really cool jazz piece written by Artie Shaw and Paul Madison. Goes into Fly Me to the Moon, the great standard. Most people probably know that by Frank Sinatra. Fly me to the moon. Do, 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 do. So many people. One of the great standards by Bart Howard. And Raoul, Snap Crackle, If I Should Lose You, Long Wharf, and Some Other Spring, which is a beautiful kind of low-key ending. The stereo on this is not wide, but it's wide enough to really make it a great stereo version. Now, I don't know what the mono sounds like in this. I'm sure in 62 there was a mono version, because in those days, we all know mono was the thing. But in talks of, was it Bob Thiel producing this, this is an amazing recording. This is probably one of the best sounding records of this collection, except there's gonna be others too. So the Verve Acoustic Series, Roy Haynes Quartet, fantastic album. Mazzy shills again for a label. Elemental reached out to me. They'd sent me records in the past, Record Store Day records, and they sent me these records out of Barcelona, I believe, and they put out some really great, some soul stuff, some rock stuff, and jazz stuff, and they sent me 2 jazz albums and 1 rock album. So I'm gonna merge from the jazz into the rock. The first of the 2 jazz records, and I had never heard these records. I knew of one of them. I knew of this one. This is Bill Evans, From Left to Right. And of course, you got this great, great shot of Bill Evans playing both the acoustic piano and the Rhodes, the Fender Rhodes, as we know it, with a cigarette the ash just about to fall. Now, this is a very lush record. This is produced by his longtime manager and producer, Helen Keane. And it has some great liner notes by Harold Rhodes. And Harold Rhodes was the inventor of the Rhodes piano. First, the Rhodes bass, keyboard bass. Those of you rock fans who are fans of the Doors will know that Ray Manzarek famously played the Rhodes bass on those early Doors albums, and when he was performing live, when they didn't have a bass player in the studio on the road with them, so he played the Rhodes Fender keyboard bass. And then, of course, on Riders on the Storm, that great tinkling of the Fender Rhodes. Harold Rhodes invented it, and then Leo Fender bought the company and became that famous keyboard instrument. But the Doors were really kind of like the first. This is recorded in 1970. Now, this is a very lush record because there is orchestration over it. Orchestration arranged conducted by Michael Leonard, but you got the great this great quartet of Sam Brown on guitar, Eddie Gomez bass, and Marty Morell on drums. It is a lush record, so if you don't like the beauty, lushness of jazz, that's probably not for you. But I tell you, these 3 Element records that I'm going to show you, Elemental records, these are dead quiet. I didn't have a pop, really well pressed. I don't know where they were pressed, but they're fantastic. But what's great about it, on side 2, there's a track called The Dolphin, and there's 2 different versions of it, the before and after. So you got the quartet with the beautiful guitar playing of Sam Brown, and of course, the wonderful, the Bill Evans piano playing, no strings. And then they have the version added with the light orchestration. It's a schmaltzy record at times, but it's such a beautiful record. I mean, it's a record of its time, but I was surprised how much I enjoyed playing this record. I played it through twice now. Now, the other jazz record that Elemental sent me was Chet Baker featuring Phil Markowitz, and this is Live at Nick's. This is recorded in 1978, not originally released to about 10 years later, I believe. 1978, outside of Amsterdam, the recording at a cafe, jazz cafe in Lorraine. That was the first time I ever went to Amsterdam that summer. So if I hung out, maybe I could have gone and seen this. This is recorded, intimate cafe, and I was literally bowled over the sound of this record, the performance. This quartet just, oh God, this record sounded so good. I played this twice in a row. It's a double album. 3 sides are all instrumental. 1 side, side 3, he sings 2 tracks on, and he sounds great. His trumpet playing sounds great. The piano, the recording, the separation. This is a magnificent live jazz record of Chet Baker. Late career Chet Baker, about 10 years before he died. It opens up with The Best Thing for You Is Me, that this powerful opening, and it cooks. This quartet really cooked. There's some beautiful low-key songs. Ends with a 13-minute version on side 4 of Love for Sale. 2 of the tracks on here were never on the original issue that came out, I think in 1988 or so. But Elemental kicked it out of the park with this. Beautiful pressing, great sounding record. If you like Chet Baker, if you're a jazz fan and really like to get into this stuff, this is one of the best sounding of any of the recent Chet Baker issues that I've heard. Just a stupendous record. Chet Baker, Elemental. I don't think I was so familiar with Elemental Records reissuing rock and roll records, and this was frankly one I was surprised, but very curious of hearing. Orange vinyl, Steppenwolf. I absolutely love this record. I bought this record when it came out, January 1968 mono. Of course, you all know The Pusher, you know Born to Be Wild. This is a new orange vinyl copy, Elemental release. Now, the bottom line is it sounds really good. Again, quiet pressings, sounds really good. Now, my preference on this album happens to be the mono, even though that psychedelic sound at the time. And this is rock and roll, a little heavier, some psychedelic, a little Baroque rock mixed in, if you know the album. So the stereo is not my number one go-to, but I have 3 other copies prior to this one. But this is not an original copy because it has the hype. This is probably the 2nd year it came out, or the next pressing. And this is Born to Be Wild, has the built-in, printed on hype bar, hype, can't say sticker when it's printed on a thing. Now, the one thing I will say about this, what I'm disappointed, I wish they did the foil cover. This deserves a reflective foil cover. If you go to the beach and you want that kind of reflective surface, you can't get it quite with this. It's like a white fill card, if you know photography. This is a copy I've had for many years. It's really hard to find clean copies of this. My copy from 1968, 69, whenever this copy, this stereo, is noisy as hell. When you get through the noise, it's a really good sounding record. Not a wonderful recorded record, but this like hybrid of LA Canadian rock band just really hit the charts and, you know, had a great run from 1968 to 72. This is a fantastic, wonderful, wonderful record. So right off, I would say I wish they invested more in the cover here and did the metallic cover. So that's something that I think kind of fails, because this is one of those records that everyone expects that cover. So, you know, when it's not there, it sort of brings it down a notch. Having said that, it sounds really good. And my guess is you're not going to find a good sounding version of this. So if you want a stereo version and you want this record, this sounds excellent. Excellent sounding record. I'll say that about this, and thank you, Elemental, for that. But let me dive a little deeper here. I just had this urge to play all my Steppenwolf records. 3 key tracks. I opened up with the cover, the great Don Covey cover, Sookie Sookie. Also into Born to Be Wild, and of course, The Pusher, the Hoyt Axton song, Goddamn the Pusher Man. This is my original mono copy from 1968. This actually sounds really good. Little noise, little crackle. It has been ultrasonically cleaned, but it still sounds fantastic. I prefer the mono, as I said, on this record. But then, I think in 2019, this came out. Now this was Sundays. Sundays does some really great issues. Now Sundays did the metallic cover. Little different take on it, little different coloring. This is cut by Kevin Gray. Out of the 4, this was my number 1 pick. The Sundays from 2019. Now, unfortunately, this is a $100 plus record now. So I'd say if you don't have the record and you want a good clean copy, your best bet is the Elemental right now. And it does sound great. If you want to invest and you don't have a good copy, you want to, I think there's only 4 for sale on Discogs right now. Cut by Kevin Gray. It sounds better than the original. Obviously, I think they had the tapes. They went to the tapes. But either way, this is the one. So Steppenwolf's debut album from 1968. And those are the 3 records that Elemental Records sent me. Continuing with the rock and roll section, I want to talk about the Replacements Tim album. This is Rhino's new expanded Let It Bleed edition of Tim. I'll get into that in a minute. This is my original promo copy given to me by my friend Jim, who used to work at Warner Brothers when this came out. This is the original release with the Robert Longo cover. But I'm not going to do a deep dive into this right now because there will be dropping maybe a day or 2 after this a conversation I had with Jason Jones from Rhino Records, who compiled this along with Bob Mayer, who's been doing these replacement reissues, expanded reissues. This is the Let It Bleed edition, one of those hybrid editions of 4 CDs and 1 vinyl LP. Now, don't get all your panties in a bunch about the hybrid mix of CDs and vinyl. It's all music, isn't it? But this has an Ed Stasium mix. This has a new dry mix. They stripped out some of the reverb from Tommy Ramone, who produced the original in 1985. Tempestuous band for a lot of reasons. Watch that video, it'll be up very soon. but this has been on my player for a long time. The expanded version has the Ed Stasium mix on vinyl, plus it has a CD, disc 1, that mix, the new mix, another disc of the original mix remastered, Son of No One, rare and unreleased tracks, and a Not Ready for Prime Time, a Chicago 1986 live show very soon after the album was released in 1985. So the replacements. Now the new releases. I'm gonna start out with Bird Machine. This is from Sparkle Horse. I had heard the name Sparkle Horse, but I wasn't familiar. My friend Todd turned me on to this record. I'll put a link below to his channel because we were chatting about this and I said, Sparkle Horse. I thought they were something completely different. This is a record that was recorded in 2010 originally. And the artist, the main artist of this outfit, this project, is Mark Linkus, who took his own life soon after this was recorded, I believe. This was produced by Steve Albini, and again, Bird Machine. This really surprised me. This is, indie, dirgy folk music, low key, a little bit of depressing, little like Silver Jews, Purple Mountain, in that indie free spirit of an artist, troubled songwriter, but very personal songs on here. Bird Machine. Thank you, Todd, for this. I've been playing this a lot and I really, really enjoy it. It is a dark album. It's a moody record. It's in a way lo-fi. If you know Steve Albini's production, it's right in that pocket that's why I really like him. Of course, he's done things in louder rock bands. This is not that. This is obviously a lower key affair, but it took all this time for this record to be released. So it's kind of cool that it came out. For me, I haven't followed Sparkle Horse. I don't really know his earlier music, but I think this is, Lost Mixtape is Todd's channel. So there's a link below to his channel. Thank you, Todd, for this. This has been on my turntable quite a bit in the last week. From Chicago, Wilco Cousin, their new album. I like Wilco because I like how, for a rock band who's become very famous and very popular, they're very personal with their music. Obviously, it almost seems sometimes like a Jeff Tweedy project with everyone else. And it's really led by his songwriting for the most part. This is a quieter record. It's not upbeat very often. There are some moments of it. It's not as experimental as, say, Yankee Hotel. I love Wilco. I'm not all in, but I follow them a lot, and I trust their music and I trust their releases. I've only played this twice so far. It's a beautiful record. It starts out a little electronic-y, which surprised me, or, a little, not quite Casio-based thing, but then it opens up, becomes more organic. The acoustic guitars flourish, of course. There's some intimate songs towards the end of Jeff Tweedy. Could be on one of his solo records. Would we like more Nels Cline on here? Probably. More of that experimental, like jazzy fusion. I would like that a little more sometimes. But I'm really happy with this record. Wilco's Cousin, out now. One of my favorite female voices in rock and roll is gotta be Chrissie Hynde. Going back from 1980, the first Pretenders album. She's woven in and out through her career, putting records out under the Pretenders name, even though she's like the only person usually, unless Martin on drums is there. He's not on this record, but this is the new record by the Pretenders, Relentless. Love that illustration, that painting on the cover. I pretty much like everything Chrissie Hynde puts out, She's not selling a lot of records as much, but she's performing live under the name The Pretenders. She should. She is the leader. She is the voice of the band. I mean, they've gone through so much turmoil in terms of death early on with the band. I love Mona Boone, the album she did, Trombone, Monobone, whatever it's called, that jazz record that her brother collaborated her with and produced, which is just an amazing album. I included it in one of my It's the Music Stupid videos recently. I just adore that. That's to me the best thing she's done from my point of view. This is a really good record. It's got, her voice is still strong. The band is great. I wouldn't say, except for maybe one or two tracks, it's upbeat. It's more that middle sound, that middle tempo up side of the Pretenders. There's probably no great hooks like, you know, Chain Gang or Brass and Pocket. You're not gonna get that, unfortunately. But well-crafted songs, medium key in terms of tempo, medium tempo, I should say, but great vocals, and the arrangements are quite nice. So a new album by the Pretenders to me is always a good thing. I got turned on by Leluc by my turntable guru Matt some years ago. Australian duo. Most of their records up until this, they were on Sub Pop Records out of Seattle. I saw them when they came through. They are such a beautiful duet. It's Zoe Randall and Steve Hassett. She sings, plays guitar. Steve Hassett plays synths, piano, bass, drums, percussion. He does some vocals occasionally, but it's all her. There's a little bit of a dream pop sound to it. These records by Leluc are so beautiful. I've recommended some other albums prior to this. I think this is recorded both in Australia and Brooklyn. There they are, this wonderful, beautiful duet. And their lyrics, their arrangements are quiet, are nurturing, they float. They're a little bit like a folk group with a little more dream pop. And I shouldn't even put the word pop in there. They're dreamy. They're very dreamy and extremely wonderful songwriting and lyrics and recording. I'm a big fan of this duo, Leluc. Diamonds, their new album, is just a really gorgeous record. Phantom Power by Super Furry Animals is a record I've been waiting for a long time to come on vinyl. I got it during the CD era. I think there was a small press run at the time on vinyl. Never got it there. There is a CD reissue as well with some expanded tracks, I believe. But this is a double album. I think BMG put it out in this country. This is so good. I've pushed this band for a long time, and they have a big following. They're a Welsh band. I saw them 3 times in America when Rings Around the World. This and Rings Around the World are in a way companion records. You could interchange the two of them. They got this very lush electronic version of the Beatles and the Beach Boys and 10cc. Great harmonies, great songwriting, great production, magnificent. Hello Sunshine opens up with a sampling of this kind of light vocal of a woman from, I forgot even where that was from. And they go into this song, the drums build up and build up. Liberty Bell, Golden Retriever is a beautiful thing on here. The whole album is good. I would say there's a song on here called Piccolo's Snare, 6 minutes, 44 seconds. To me, it's one of the best things they've ever done. The production, the way that the last minute is just this kind of drum beat going on and on. What a great album. There's humor in some of their lyrics here. Venus and Serena, of course, about the tennis playing sisters, but really wonderful. If you like pop music, great harmonies, great vocals, take Pet Sounds, add electronics, and push it forward 40 years. This is an album for you. I'm gonna close out with 2 records I just bought by Osabisa. Both these records were released in 1971. And I used to have this one. I got rid of it in my 95 Purge. I never had Woyoya, their second album, although I knew the title song, the final track on this, because Art Garfunkel recorded a really beautiful version on his debut album, Angel Clare. Very different. And in a way, his is the most light, beautiful thing. It's almost the track that's the more conservative pop song on this album. What's great about Osabisa, they're this wonderful hybrid. They're out of the UK, but they're African musicians who have this mixed sound of Africana, soul music, a little bit of funk, jazz. There's flutes, and it's just really good. It reminds me of the very first Santana album. If you could take sort of the African music, mix it with soul, like the Latin music of that very first Santana album in 1969. These are two gorgeous records. Now, I had this record. I've been looking for clean copies of these records literally for a couple of decades at this point. Every time I find them, they're trashed. I came across these just recently for 10 bucks a pop. Beautiful covers, the pressings, the copies are pristine. Decca Records tended to have some noisy records in the early 70s, but these are quiet as hell. I did clean them, but they're really great sounding. I was surprised. I had no idea. I guess I never paid attention that both these records are produced by Tony Visconti, obviously, who worked with T-Rex and David Bowie and so many other great artists. These records sound awesome. They're almost audiophile. I hate to say that word, but I blasted these records, and especially the first one here. Of course, you'll recognize the cover art. Roger Dean, before he started working with Yes and the Prague artist. These are Roger Dean covers. Of course, between the first and second cover, both 1971, he started working with some Prague artists, I believe with Yes that year, because when he jumped on, I don't know in terms of what they saw or anything, but obviously people know Roger Dean, very identifiable cover artist. Just exquisite records, soulful African jazzy rock music, and not pretentious. I did see them once accidentally. I was with them on my last family vacation, 17 years old. Every summer I'd go with the family. We met some friends of my parents and another contemporary of mine. We were in San Diego, and my friend and I went to the San Diego Sports Arena to see Three Dog Night, and Osabisa opened up. It would have been probably the summer of 1971. And so in between these two records is when I saw Osabisa the only time. Highly recommended if you can find clean copies of these. They shouldn't be too pricey, but for 10 bucks a pop, this is like the deal. So thanks for watching this episode of Mazzy's Mix. Hope you took notes. Hope you find something here with this whole collection of things you like. Mazzy loves you.